Hey there, Wendy here with Jazzy Doodle Designs, and today we're going to be working in, I'm going to call him Nick Filbert because that's his other name, in Fantasia, and I thought we would do this Halloween page, right? The Scarecrow, can you see it? The Scarecrow page, right? And these are the colors that I've chosen. I am going to be doing Payne's Gray, Deep Indigo, Iron Blue, Denim and Lapis, and then Sepia Ink, Oak, and Sienna Gold. Now this is my thought. Deep blue background, right? Fading to really light in the center, like coming from the moon. And then these branches and stuff in probably the oak, and then I'll go over it with colored pencil. I'm not going to do the pumpkin head with Inktense. I'll probably just go in with pencil, and I will probably just do this main piece here in the Inktense Sienna Gold, and then I'm going to use pencils for the background, and I have not yet decided what pencils I'm going to use. And then these leaves here, I'm going to be using this, probably this Inktense Oak, just because I want it to be very dark. So that's my plan as of right now. Okay, and as far as these leaves, I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and go over it lightly with my blues. And then I'll add the green tones to it with colored pencil. I think that's what I'm going to do. Alright guys, let's get started. So I am going to use a Pentel, a gouache, water brush. This is my favorite, so I generally lean towards that, can you tell? And I'm going to start with my darkest color, where is it? Payne's Gray. My thought is almost like a vignette. I really like that look myself. Now, when you're using Inktense, you know how they always say that you should have your pencil super sharp and all of that. I find that with Inktense, here I want them sharp enough. You know what? I'm gonna go lightly. Okay. Can you tell I'm thinking through as I go? So my thought is, I'm going to go over all of these leaves and everything with these colors. However, I'm not going to go over the leaves. I'm not worried about touching them at this point because I am going to go over them with my brush, because the brush will push that color onto them without leaving them too dark, right? And here where it'd be really dark, I'm going to go ahead and lightly go over these leaves. I'm not too worried about directionality at this point as far as my brush or my pencil strokes, because I'm using very light pressure, and it really only matters with the water brush, right? So here where it'd be really dark, I'm going to go ahead and go in with that Payne's Gray kind of over everything. See, I'm thinking that it's going to start getting lighter about here. You know, it's like a gradient. So just a little bit of Payne's Gray on the sides here. Not a lot. Now, of course, you can do this any way that you would like. You don't have to use Payne's Gray. I'm just telling you why I do it. Okay, so you can see that's a pretty light coat, because now I'm going to go in with this deep indigo. And you can see my pencil's pretty dull, right? And I actually kind of like it that way, when I'm working with Inktense because I find that I don't get any harsh marks on the paper that are hard to kind of blend out with my water brush. Now that's a personal opinion. Now, I will say it's got to be sharp enough that you can, like if I wanted to get around this and not get it on there, I need it sharp enough to be able to do that. But in this case, most of what I'm doing is going to be going over everything. And you can see I'm going over that Payne's gray because I don't really want the corners gray. I still want them blue. I just want them darker. And then with this indigo, I am going to go ahead and just ever so lightly, or just not very deep into the page, add a little bit here on the sides. Because up here towards the top, we definitely want it, well, I definitely want it a little lighter. Okay, so next up is our iron blue. So that's our next lightest color. And then I want to be mindful, and sometimes I actually put in my lights first so that I don't go too dark. So let's maybe do that. So I'm going to jump ahead here to my lapis, which is going to be my lightest blue, right? And I am going to come in here. I'm not too worried if I get it on the tree because the tree is going to be very dark. It's going to be that sepia. But I avoid it where I can. I just don't want to be too tedious about it, right? Now, up here around this moon and stuff, it's definitely going to be really light. So I'm going in not only lightly with my color, but not everywhere. And I'm going ahead and bringing out that light all the way here. I'm going to add like that denim and stuff there on the edge. But I'm kind of like marking in to make sure that I don't get crazy with my dark colors and not leave enough room. I can always go over light colors with dark, but once you add Inktense, come on now. Once you add the Inktense, the darker color Inktense, you know, there's no move in it. So it's better to have this light and then go over it. Okay. I'm going to leave a little space here because I might even do a little white. I didn't pull that out, but I'm thinking now that I might want to add that there. So I'm going to leave a little space. I encourage you to be more tidy than I am. I tend to be a little looser. I color for fun. I color for relaxation. I color to have a connection with you guys. And so I tend to be a little impatient. You'll never go wrong with being more tedious unless you're wanting a loosey-goosey feel to your page. But I just encourage you to embrace your style, whatever that is, right? See, I got that blue a little close right there. I'm not too worried. But remember I said I was going to leave it a little lighter. But you know what? The sky is, there's always variety, right? There are places where it's a little darker, a little lighter, all of that. I think coloring, too often we get so wound up in the perfectionism of it all that we forget to play and to allow ourselves to have a little bit of fun. Have you ever seen a kid color? They're just like slapping color on the paper. They don't care. And, sometimes it shows in their work. But you know what? They had a blast, right? And most of the time, they're very happy with how it turned out because nobody has told them that isn't what it's quote unquote supposed to look like. So they're oftentimes very happy with how things come out. Even though we as adults that have been conditioned to how something should come out might look at it askance. So I challenge you to allow your art to bring you joy. Now, we all love a really good page, right? When we do that page and it turns out the way we want it, that gives us a lot of joy, right? So I'm not saying don't do a good job or don't take your time, but find the balance for you, because that might be totally different from your bestie, right? My bestie is far more patient than I am. And what gives her joy and is relaxing to her might make me a crazy person. Well, crazier. But I think that's a gift, right? Because then her and I can have something different and share our love of coloring without being the same. I think too often in the world right now, we've got this mentality that if somebody doesn't believe what we think, live the way we do, whatever, then they're just wrong. Right? And we might think they're wrong, but you know what? That's their life. So I feel the same way with coloring. I've seen people, I love when people color with like pastels. I think it's so pretty. I struggle so much with it. I'm like, oh, I need to add more value. And the next thing I know, I have a page that looks like all my pages. I did a Chris Chang video one time, like a color along. It was a Christmas one. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I encourage people to do color alongs from different artists because we all color differently, and one artist will probably resonate a little bit more with you than others. Like, you might follow me because I'm snarky, but really your coloring style is more like Karen at My Colorful Country Life. No shame, no judgment there, you know? But anyway, back to Chris Chang. I learned a lot, but it challenged me so much. Not because I had a hard time following her, but just because I was like, really? We're going to add another layer and another color and so forth. And I was just like, when are we calling this done? Like, when are we moving on to the next step? Because it just is not it's not really my style. So here I'm, once again, just kind of going over leaves. Some leaves I'm going to go over more than others, not necessarily with any mad intent on my part, but simply because, you know, that's just what happens. And I think it's going to add a lot of variety to the page, and I think that'll be good, because they're all going to get a little bit of a wash when I activate, right? But some that have more color are going to be activated, or, you know, darker or lighter depending. Okay. But for the most part, I'm thinking that they're going to be in shadow. Now this is denim. This is a fairly light color. It's not our lightest, but it's a lighter color. And I think it'll be a good blend. And I'm even bringing some of that down into these other colors. I want these colors to definitely blend. Okay. Maybe a little bit more here. I'm going to go in, I think, just with a little bit of that lighter here. Bring a little bit of that into these leaves because I want them all to have some blue. Okay. I think that'll be good. I want to leave all of this pretty light. Maybe I feel like just a little bit more blue here. Okay. Now, when I go to blend, first of all, see this brush? This is a very tiny brush. This is great if I'm trying to get into those little things, but I think I'm going to want a little bit of a wider brush. I have a lot of smaller ones. This might be the one. All right, we're going to start with this. Okay, it's the same brush, a little fatter. Okay, so I'm going to start up here with my lightest. Now, be careful where you don't have a lot of Inktense, because that is where... Okay, I'm going to put a piece of cardstock just behind, just as a little protective measure. But you see, I don't have a lot there. I'm going to go in and add it with, by adding, Wendy, can you talk? No, I cannot. I'm going to add it this way, right? And come in that way after I've activated this layer. Now, I can tell that this paper needs a little more pencil. Okay, it's a very absorbent paper. And so I think what I'm going to need to do is, before I get all crazy here, I'm going to go in and add more color. Okay, it's just a feel thing. I can just feel, do you see how it's not blending, it's not, I don't have a lot of color coming out. And Inktense is generally pretty intense. And so that tells me I just need a little bit more. So I'm going to try that before I do the whole page. Yeah, see, that's a little better. See how much better that is? Once again, not getting crazy over whether or not I... Okay, so before I do the rest of the page, I'm just going to add another layer to everything. Okay, I am back. We got another layer down. I think that's going to be a little better. Now, whenever I feel like I'm getting too much buildup, just kind of wipe my brush off. Because I want to push the color somewhat. Now you notice I did start with the lightest and then work my way back to the darker. We can always add another darker layer, so keep that in mind. This is good paper, good quality paper. See how dark that is? If I keep pushing this way without wiping my brush, I'm gonna struggle. But I started it, so I don't want to leave a real hard edge there. Same as that light will overtake it too. It depends on the color. So just be cautious. We don't want to leave a real hard line here on the edge. Depending on the paper, these pencils can be pretty forgiving. On bad paper, they're not. On this paper, they are. See how I don't want to leave a real hard edge, so I'd rather push into that than leave a hard like edge of blue right there. Kind of the key to that is having a wet brush. See, I got a line right there, so just keep working it a little bit so we don't leave those harsh lines, because when they dry, they can be pretty difficult to overcome. But you can see where I got into the Payne's Gray now. Look what a beautiful color that is with the indigo. I really like that a lot. And then coming out into that denim, bringing that denim down a little. Now this is where, if your paper's bad, you can really start overworking it. Because you see those little lines and you want to fix them. And you got to be real careful. If you're working on crappy paper, the paper just can't take it. So it's easier to fix those with another layer. Okay? So if you're working on bad paper and you have that happen, let it completely dry and go in with another layer. Okay? So I washed my brush off. Now I'm coming in with just clear water to try and not leave too harsh of an edge there. Wiping it off and just lightly brushing right here where this is white. See? This is another thing. If you have really crappy paper and you don't have any Inktense, you can, or you don't have a lot of Inktense, you can go through your paper pretty easily, and then it will bleed. So the irony is not enough color can actually make it bleed just as much as too much, because the color, almost the wax or the pigment or whatever you want to say, almost acts as a little bit of a barrier to your picture. to the paper, right? And if you don't have a lot, you're essentially just putting water down, and the water just goes right through it. And then any pigment that's there, boop, it rears its ugly head on the other side of your page, and then we all cry. But I have to say, this paper is so nice. See how I'm just kind of pushing it out? Because I can. So I just want to emphasize that a lot, because I don't want you to take this technique and go to something with crappy paper and ruin your page and have you be mad at me or think that I lied to you. Can you see I've just thrown all caution to the wind when it comes to the trees? Like, they're all gonna have some blue. Now, luckily this is all one-sided paper, so I'm not worried about bleed through. So once again, I'm not worried about this top part. I'm going to fix that with a pencil. Or not a pencil, but once this all dries, you know, I was at one point maintaining a barrier. I think on my next layer, I'll go ahead and take this page all the way to the bottom. All right, I'll be back when it dries. Okay, guys, I am back. Now, one thing I will tell you, make sure your page is dry, dry, dry. Not dry like it doesn't come off on your hand. Your paper should not feel cold, okay? It should feel like if you touch this piece of paper, it should feel the same temperature as this piece of paper, okay? Because sometimes you think it's dry, but it's still a little damp, and that's when you can really do damage. Okay, so I've got my brush here, and I have got my deep indigo. I'm going to pick up a little bit on my brush, and I'm going to just small circles now. One, I'm going to fill this whole bottom with color. Okay, but I also just want to deepen it up a little bit. Now you can do this a number of different ways. We can brush it off onto a palette. I'm going to try and tidy up just a little bit my line or my edge there. I did check the back. I had no bleed through. And you can see I don't even have a whole lot of warping, which is really nice. But I want to bring this blue out because you can see here where we got that Payne's gray and it darkened it up, and that's great, but I still want it to be the deeper blue tones. Okay. You can decide how far up you want this darker color to go. Right? Probably should have sharpened this pencil before I started doing this. But Now, I'm not one that likes to dip my pencils. Some people do that. I don't really do that. The water's not great for the wood, but I don't feel like when you use it like this, it causes long-term harm. Because once this dries, you can just sharpen your pencil and that little bit of wood is gone. So there are times when I do, like I actually lay down another layer of pencil on the page. But I find that by doing it this way, I have a little bit more control. I'm going to bring it up a little bit here. Okay. All right, I'm going to let that dry before I go into the next lighter tones, just once again to keep from damaging my paper. Okay guys, I am back. This is completely dry, and I want to point out what I was talking about earlier. Remember how I said it didn't bleed through, right? Well, look what happened right, can you see just right here along the edge? Well, where was that? That was where I didn't have any color down, right? And I just added it, and you can even see here, just that little, no you can't, can you see? Yeah. Just this little line, right? So even though this is really great paper, you always need to have a backing for number one. And number two, I would have been better off to lay down pencil like this, like I'm going to do right now. Like this, okay? But it would help if I used the indigo green or the indigo blue. Okay, because by adding it to that blank paper like that, I ended up with a little bit of bleed through. I don't care. Like I said, this paper, it can handle it. It's fine. Now, as far as here, I don't feel like I need a whole lot. I like the blend I got going here. I have a little bit too much of a straight line for my liking here. So I will go in with, I think, denim. And I'm just going to add a little bit here. Okay. And then with the lapis, I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit of blue going in here. Kind of like sketchy across the sky. And a little bit along this line. Let me grab my white. Okay, I am going to add a little bit of white here so that when I pull out the lapis, it'll just kind of help it be a little whiter. I'm going to do this whole moon white. Okay. Okay. All right. Here we go. Let's go in with our lapis. Where did it go? right in front of me. Okay. All right. So kind of blending that straight line there. And see how that white just kind of helped resist it a little bit. Gonna bring in our blue here. Not bad. Now, I don't plan on doing anything to my background with pencils. So this is kind of, well, with the exception of the leaves. But I mean, as far as this blue. So I want to make sure that I'm okay with all of the blends and stuff. I do feel like this is a little starker than I'd like. So I'm going to take, not indigo, so let's take this denim and see if that's helping at all. We feel like that helped. I mean, it's just going to be a darker area. I think it'll be fine. Maybe just a little more of this color here. Okay, think I can live with that. So that's going to be our background. I'm going to let it completely 100% dry, and then we'll go in with our pencils. You know what? I just saw something. The lapis right here. We just need a little bit. Didn't have any blue there. A little bit of a line still. Okay. Don't fiddle anymore. Stop it. Stop it. All right, guys, let's get started. So I'm going to be using my new Derwent drawing pencils. If you don't have these, you could use Polychromos, you could use Prismacolor. Just pick colors that are similar. Prisma probably has the closest to the muted green blues. So maybe keep that in mind. Now, I am going to try and make this pumpkin head look like it is glowing. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding really bright yellows to the center and then brighter kind of colors here on the nose. Now, the Derwent drawing doesn't really have like a bright orange. So I would suggest if you are using other pencils, use a little bit brighter orange. So like a, do I have my pencils in front of me? No. Like a yellow orange maybe, or like a true pumpkin type of orange. And you may get a little bit better results for the inside and the inside layer of the mouth. Now, as far as the pumpkin itself, on the outside, in order for the pumpkin to look like it's glowing from within, the outside has to be dark. If you color this a traditional pumpkin orange color, you will not get the same look. It won't look like it's glowing, right? It's just going to simply, it'll look more flat. It'll just look, it's hard to explain. It just won't have the glow type of look. Now, as far as a couple of things that you can also do, you can put variances of color in your pumpkin to where maybe have it look like, you know how when a pumpkin glows from inside, the thinner areas will show up brighter? So you could do that as well. And I've tried to depict that a little bit. I'm going to touch it up at the end because this is kind of just the first layers, right? But I'm going to darken the bottom of it and kind of the top of it and that kind of stuff to kind of help depict that. Now, this paper in this book is a very toothy paper. And so you're going to see that at some point when I'm done here, I will use a Derwent, or not a Derwent, a Caran d'Ache colorless blender to blend it out a little bit. And I may move on in the picture and then come back to it. But that, even that amount was not enough to get rid of the tooth. You need some sort of solvent. So I'll talk about that more as we get to it. Okay. But here I'm just laying in some darker lines and, like the creases of the pumpkin and that kind of stuff. Now, I'm not probably going to narrate every single part of this video just simply because there's only so much I can say about this pumpkin head and what I'm doing, right? If you're new to the channel, all of my videos, if I'm talking there in real time, usually, well, let me rephrase that. You can usually tell if I'm voicing over like I am now. When I voice over, the video will be in 2x speed. I do that so that you can slow it down to real time manually, or you can just keep it at 2x speed. But it just keeps my videos from being overwhelmingly long. Because let's face it, coloring, this kind of coloring just takes a little more time, right? Because we have to layer and blend and do all the things. And it helps to where I don't have to narrate for 2 days. Well, I should say with big, long gaps of me not saying anything. Now here's where I'm adding this Caran d'Ache Colorless Splendor and just trying to smooth out some of that tooth. And you can see that it helps, but I feel like it's not quite enough at the end. So much further along in the video, once everything's colored, I will go in with Gamsol, which is an odorless mineral spirit, and I talk about it then. So normally this blender does very well, and I think it definitely improved it quite a bit. And I could have done more if I would have just kept pressing and pressing, right? But the whole point of blenders is so that we don't have to do that. I felt like I was a little too yellow here in the center, so I wanted to add a little bit more of that orange. One of my biggest struggles on this page was just trying to figure out what colors to use. I wanted to use this orange because it is a complementary color to the blue, and I felt like it would make a big impact, right? And it also goes with the pumpkin head. In some ways, it's very challenging to use a limited palette. And I was tempted many times to bring in other colors, and I really refrained. For example, with the flowers, I really struggled. And quite honestly, I'm not sure I made the right decision. I had mixed feelings about it in the end because I did not want those flowers to take over the picture. And if I would have used something like a super bright yellow or brought in a different color red or something like that, I felt like it could really draw your eye to that. And I want your eye to be drawn to the pumpkin head, right? So the very lightness behind the head up by the moon, I feel like really draws your eye directly to the subject matter. And I feel like his clothing is like the supporting cast, right? And so this is something that I have been working on myself to really try and limit my palettes. And I'm finding that it is a little challenging when I'm working on the page, but when I'm done, I'm finding that I really like how they're turning out. And I feel like it actually has improved my coloring quite a bit. So I know a lot of artists recommend that. I definitely limit my palette in a lot of my pages by color groups. So I might have, let's say, like in this one, I have orange, red, yellow, and blue. And I have kept this palette much smaller than my normal, mainly because Derwent only has 72 colors. So I didn't have a whole lot of options to choose from. In other choices like your Prismas, where you have so many more colors, it's very tempting to want to dive into all of them. Now, I did stay within the same essentially color family here, and I am using like a orange yellow, and I'm using a red orange, right? So technically, I haven't really pushed too hard out of the orange family. I have used those tertiary colors in order to make the palette more cohesive. So I still have the benefit of having a different color depicting the back of this piece of cloth versus the front, right? And I'm able to use that color from the back as the shadows from the front. And so it all looks, your eye doesn't go, oh, there's 4 colors there, but it does see the difference in, the back from the front and the shadows from the forefront. So that's something that you can really use in your coloring that I have found effective, by not going into like a brighter red, like a more pinky red, because I was tempted with the flowers and the scarf and stuff like that. And in the end, um, I feel I feel good about this page. Now, I have seen a lot of great pages, where they didn't do that. And so, I'm not saying my way is the right way. I am just saying that this is something I have personally been working on, um, because I am someone that loves all the colors. I have complete set syndrome. I want them all and I want to play with them all. And I tend to really be drawn to vibrant, bold pages. And it's very hard to use the whole rainbow on a page and like how it turns out, mainly because I think sometimes you lose sight of who is the main character in your page. What is it, the main focus? Everything starts to compete with other things. And in this page, by using this very narrow palette, I feel like it's very obvious on the page. Um, your eye just glides over the page and takes it in as a whole, but the pumpkin head to me is what kind of pops out. At least I hope that's what happens for you guys too. Now I'm going to pop off, for a bit, because it does take a while to color these, trees, and I do bring the book back into the picture for you. But basically, I am just using these 2 darker, red brown kind of colors to add a little depth and shadow, but ultimately I just want them to be like depicted mainly in shadow. So I'm not using a lot of like light brown like you normally see on a tree, right? Usually you use like 3 colors, but I really want this to be just like an accessory, right? The necklace, um, to the picture. I hope that that makes sense. I feel like I'm mixing all my analogies now. Wait a minute, Wendy. I thought we were talking about a play and supporting characters. And now you're talking about jewelry. But I think you understand what I'm saying, even if I am all over the map. All right, I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so next up, I am just using these kind of muted green-gray colors to color the leaves. If you have Prismacolor, I would probably use slate gray, um, jade, no, slate gray, celadon green, or jade green, your choice. And maybe for the highlight, a little gray green light. You may need to go over the gray green light with a little bit of the jade green very lightly to get maybe the same effect, though I think it would work just as effectively. My idea is as these, like on the very tips here, I'm using this ash blue. This is where you would use your gray green light, but you could just use slate green or slate gray and jade green, right? Just those two colors. And then maybe a pop of white on the tips. So that would be kind of my suggestions for some alternatives, because I know not everyone has the Derwent drawing pencils, but I am so impatient. And this is honestly one of my favorite. Um, I've loved these pencils and I love kind of these muter tones. Which is kind of ironic if you look at my Instagram because every page I color is like bright colors. Um, but I really do love these shades. And I think that now that I have more options, I will definitely be using more of a muted palette going forward. Not to say my vibrant colors are going away, because I love that. But there's just something about these kind of muted colors that just appeal to me. But anyway, sorry I'm blathering, but that's why you're here, right? Because you fellow idiots on the internet. Now, as we're moving into the darker, I am not going to be pulling in the fur green and the ash blue because I want it to look more like a vignette. Okay, so this is very simple, basic shading here. Use your judgment on how deep you want your glow effect to come. You can have it go out farther or just leave it on the tippy tips. But anyway, next I'm using Midnight. Now, if you were using, if you're going to use Prismacolor, I would probably go with an indigo blue. And you can always kind of tamp that back a little bit. If it feels too bright, then go over it with probably a 90% cool gray, just a very light layer, right? So that because sometimes indigo blue can, if it gets any lightness to it at all, it's a beautiful color, but it definitely is not as deep as the Midnight. Okay, so that would be my suggestion. But basically, you could even make them 90% cool gray. So do a little experiment in a corner, in that bottom left corner, just pick a leaf and see which one you like better. Okay, and then as you move closer to the light source, then you can bring in the indigo blue and maybe I would probably use Copenhagen and True Blue, maybe. Yeah, probably. So hopefully you find that helpful. If you need, experiment with your blues and see which ones are working best with you. Because if you don't have the Derwent drawing, you may have used totally different shades of blue, and my suggestions aren't going to be helpful at all. But anyway, I'll pop back in when we get to our next step. So using the same thoughts that I was talking about before, I used that darker, the sanguine that we used on the back of the cloth. I'm bringing it forward here. And I'm going to be basically using the same color scheme, like with the circles. We'll go with the Mars orange and the apricot. And then, because once again, I don't want this to be the star of the show. I want it to kind of blend into the background. I just want you to understand my reasoning. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't mean that you couldn't do this. It would look pretty in a blue. Like maybe that Delft blue would be a good choice. And I debated on that. I really did. In the end, I went this direction. I really do feel like a broken record with some of this stuff. So with the scarf here, I really did debate a really long time on that. Oh, I guess I need to fill out the rest of the his neck there. And I just used the same colors that I used in the wood. And I missed a spot there. I'm filling in like the straw that's kind of sticking out here with that wheat color. Now for the scarf, I really do feel like a broken record because I keep saying the same things, but I'm drawing in the same colors that I used in the leaves. I feel like when you do this, it gives the page some cohesiveness, having the same colors duplicated in various points in your coloring. But once again, it could have been done in a blue. I could have brought in, I guess I do. To change up the color a little bit, just adding in a little bit of that Delft blue and the and muting it down with the green, you get a little bit of a different color, and yet it's still cohesive, right? Because I didn't just pick a random blue out of the box. I used the blues that I used in the rest of the piece. And this is just my colorless blender kind of blending it all out. Now, guys, I want you to understand something. This isn't something I took a class on. This isn't something that some expert said you should do this. This is simply my thoughts on this. And the way that I get it is by looking at pictures that I have colored and really like. I ask myself, what is it about this that I really like? Why do I like this page more than this page? And oftentimes it's not the technical skill that I've used. It's not which medium I've used. Oftentimes, and this is true with other people's pages, when you scroll Instagram, I'm jumping around a little bit, but it's the same concept. If you're scrolling on Instagram and you're like, oh, that's cute, I like that, yeah, that's great, oh, that's a nice one, and then there's that one that stops you and your jaw drops to the floor and you're like, whoa. I want you to pause on that picture and I want you to really analyze it and ask yourself, what is it that hits you? Why is this page the one that makes your mouth drop open, right? And oftentimes I think you're going to find that it's a muted palette, or not muted, limited, meaning it's not every color in the rainbow. It's sometimes it's just one color in various values, right? The second thing you're going to notice is the value change. Your light lights and your dark darks. They have both, right? And the middle. And those are the ones, at least that is what draws my eye. And that's what makes me go, whoa. Now, looking at this page, unfinished, I just noticed this. See how the little white tips are on this flower? I would almost leave them like that. Looking at it now, I like it. It makes them pop off the page and yet subtle enough that it doesn't jar you. So looking at it now, I would probably not do this layer of gold. I feel like the gold gets lost. So I may go back now and add a little tiny pop of white onto each of those little tips. So, but see, it's those kind of things that you have to analyze the work. Okay, so TED Talk over, and I'm going to talk to you, I think, in real time going forward. So until next time, happy coloring. Okay, I am back, and what I've done is, if you look on this side, I have actually, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. I have used Gamsol. That's this, okay? It is an odorless mineral spirit. Now, you can use Zest It, you can use whatever you want. I just had a tiny bit left, and I put it in this cute little pot that I got from Debbie. And I put a cotton pad, you know, just those cosmetic ones, just like you would use to remove nail polish or whatever. And I'm using Q-tips that have like the pointy end on them. And I have done essentially this side. I haven't done the bird, but this side I have not. Do you see the difference? I'll try and zoom in when I edit a little bit, but I want to show you what I'm doing. So I'm just, I dip into my pot because it really does not take very much Gamsol, okay? And then you want to kind of work light to dark. Now here's the thing, this is going to kind of blend these colors out. So if you don't want that, then don't do this. Because you can see that this is kind of blending these. Now I'm okay with that because that's kind of the look I was going for. This is an extremely toothy paper, and so we just really have a lot of tooth still showing, even though I've done quite a few layers. And y'all know I'm not like the lightest hand. So I felt like it needed a little bit of Gamsol. Now you have to be careful. You see how much I have built up? If I take a piece of paper, do you see how that will transfer? So you got to be careful that you, as you build up color, that you're not transferring it where you don't want. So I'm dipping in again, and so now I can work on this blue area. I'm not done with the other, but I just want to kind of show you how this blends. See how it made it just less of a gradient? Now, because I've built up this green, I don't want to like get it onto those flowers because you can really make them look muddy. But essentially that's what I'm going to do. Now, I am not going to do the background with Gamsol. You certainly could, but I am not going to. I am just going to finish up my Scarecrow. It was especially bugging me in the pumpkin. But I will do the birds and probably these leaves, but probably nothing else. Because I kind of like the textured look in the background a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do. I am going to do it on off camera because, like, how much of this do you really want to watch me do, right? It's just essentially going over everything that I've already colored, okay? And being mindful that I don't transfer my colors. Excuse me. So I'll be right back. Okay, I am back. And I am going to do a little touch up on my page. You might not need to do this, but I have a few places, like right here, where it's, you know, it's just missing a little blue. So I'm going to touch those up. You can smooth out any, anything that you feel like needs touched up. This seems to be a pretty good match. Okay. Now I want to keep a lot of that lighter, right? But I feel like it extended too far this way a little bit. So I'm just using this Polar Ice to kind of blend that just a touch. Really light strokes. Same with over here. This got a little grayed out, I think probably from my hand and the brown. So I'm just going to bring in a little bit more of this blue. Okay. So just wherever you think. My paper got a little damaged right here. So I'm being extra careful not to push hard because it'll really show that textural change I have right there. Okay, so just smooth out any big jumps in color or spots that are maybe missing. Haven't decided to do what to do with this particular thing. It's like a little rope or something, but it's only on that one side, so okay. Okay, I think I'm going to use wheat. We'll see if it shows up. Yeah. Okay. The last thing I'm going to do is I am going to use a white, I've really been enjoying this Flycy marker. It's acrylic painter. You want to mix it up really well. But look how nice it works. All right. So I'm going to go over my moon here. This one really surprised me because I normally don't like plastic nibs. Just find that they tend to clog on me more. But I've really had good luck with this one. Okay, so I want to do that and let that dry. Okay, next I'm going to go in and just right at the tip of where it's lightest, right? Just add in a little bit of white, and then I want to mute it down with my finger, trying not to get it. Don't get it on the pumpkin. We can touch that up. But the idea is I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to go in with my yellow. But it's just going to brighten it up just ever so slightly, right? And really give it a sense of glow. I'm tempted to do some, I don't know. I can't decide. Let's just see. I might do a little bit of white highlight on the edges here. The nice thing about acrylic markers like this is if you don't like it, you can let it dry and then you can scrape it off with your fingernail. But I think I think that adds just a little bit of definitely don't like it on the bird. I'll fix that. Not on his beak though. And I'm going to give him a little white on the eye. Probably should have went in with a little bit of black. But they're so dark, I don't think it would really make that much of a difference, so I think just the white works. So I just want it on the closest things to the light, right? Don't be afraid to mess up, because like I said, first of all, you can scrape it off, or if you do it right away, sometimes you can just wipe it off right then and there. You can color over it with your colored pencil, and there really isn't a right or wrong way to do this. It's kind of a personal choice, whether you even want it at all. I don't think I want it on my pumpkin though. I might even go back in and make my pumpkin a little darker. All right, what do we think of that? I don't... Kind of torn on... like the outfit. If there's enough contrast. Just a little Mars orange here. Yeah. On its little leg. It's a little bright there. I'm going to take a black. Now this is the exact same pen, only in black. And I'm going to put some dots here. Making sure I don't smear the ones I just put on. And I think I'm going to emphasize these dots on the outfit. Are you still in camera? I go swirling my book around. doesn't make a humongous difference, but it's subtle, right? Just a little something. Okay, I'm going in with my mustard and very lightly going over that white. You see how that brightened that up a little? And I just get a little bit more glow. We're going to go apricot. So in order for you to get glow, you have to have dark. So I feel like that Gamsol kind of dulled this down a little. So I'm going to go in with that sepia red. Here it is. And let's just kind of re-go over our pumpkin a little bit. And maybe even the chocolate, right? Maybe some more flicks of chocolate coming up. You know how pumpkins kind of have yeah, I like that. Okay, I think we're almost done. Okay, this is just going to be a little Chinese white, just to add some visual interest to the wood. Right? Adds just a little bit of a definition. Okay, I think I'm going to call this done. What do you guys think? Thank you for watching another video from Jazzy Doodle Designs. If you'd like even more Jazzy Doodle and a little more snark, please check out the membership below. If you're looking for a community where you can share your work and chat with other fellow colorists in a safe and welcoming environment, hit the subscribe button to Jazzy Doodle Designs and then look for Jazzy Doodle Designs Coloring Community on Facebook. And there you can join a group of fellow colorists to talk all things coloring and share cute pet pictures. I hope to see you there. And until next time, happy coloring.